So yeah, in the previous session, what we did was we used particular IP addresses for
Yeah.
particular networks, and what we agreed to was that if somebody is in the same network as you, then it's
Yeah.
possible for you to communicate with them. So in this case, this is possible.
Yeah.
This is also possible. This is
Yeah.
also possible. So
That's right.
basically, anyone in this network can talk to everyone.
Yeah.
And also, this is also possible because they're on the same router. Now,
Neighborhood. Yeah.
anybody on your network or on the same router as
Mhm.
yourself, it's possible for you to reach them. Why? Because your router knows about them. So
Yeah.
in this case, this router knows about the 10 network
Mm-hmm.
and also about the 20 network.
Yeah.
So this guy can talk to this guy, can talk
Mm-hmm.
to this guy, and talk to this guy.
Yeah.
Same applies to anybody on the same router.
Yeah.
Now, the challenge will arise when maybe this guy, 20,
Yeah.
2, or any of them wants to communicate with somebody else on a different router
Mm-hmm.
or communicate with, let's say, this guy or
Mm-hmm.
communicate with this guy. Do you get the idea?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
This is not possible.
Yeah.
The reason why it's not possible is because they are on different router.
Different routes. Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
So that brings us to a new concept
Mm-hmm.
called routing.
Routing. Okay.
Are you okay?
Yeah.
All right. So what then is routing? Routing is just a way for your router, first of
Mm-hmm.
all, to identify the networks that are supposed to be known, but then because of the fact that they are not residing on the same router, it's
Look like
unknown
that.
to your router. Does it make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
So basically, in this topology or
Mm-hmm.
diagram, we can say for sure that R1 has
Mm-hmm.
these two networks,
Yeah.
R2 has
This
this
makes sense.
network, and this
30.
network.
And,
So basically, in the diagram, how many networks do we have?
in the diagram, we have three networks
Okay,
altogether.
we say in the topology we have three networks. Yeah,
Yeah.
we have 10 network, we have 20 network,
And then divided
we
by
have
30.
30 network. Yeah,
Yeah.
but we said on R1 we have only two networks,
Yeah.
only two networks, and on R2 we also have only two networks.
Yeah.
So what routing will do is, first of all, find routing will help us find the missing networks.
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, it will help us find the path or direction.
Yeah. And just give me 1 second.
All right. Path or direction to the missing network. Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, we have, let's start with the R1. R1 has 10 network, yeah?
Yeah.
So we can say, okay, R1 already has 10 network. R1 has 20 network, so we can say R1 has 20 network. Does R1 have the 30 network?
This R1, no, doesn't have it.
Okay, so we'll put it here. That's something that we have to figure out.
Yeah.
Now let's go to R2.
Yeah.
R2 has the 10 network, right?
Yeah.
But R2 doesn't have the 20 network.
Doesn't have it.
So we'll have to make some provision for that. But then it has the 30
Yeah.
network. Basically, the missing ones, so this is missing for R2 and this is missing for R1.
Yeah.
Does it make sense?
Yeah.
And when we are able to find a way to get to those networks, then it means we have three networks each.
Yeah.
Three networks each, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the concept of routing.
Sure.
Now, so we're saying that routing
Mm-hmm.
is just a way to find the network.
Yeah. Network. Yeah.
Yeah. And secondly, to
Find
find
out
the
direction to the
path
missing.
or direction to those missing networks.
Yeah.
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 Okay. If we go back to our diagram,
Mm-hmm.
we can say that in order for us R1 to
Yeah.
know about the 30 network, we have to travel through this
The
direction. Do you get?
direction. Yeah.
We have to travel through this direction. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So we'll say that if we want to go to 30 network,
Okay.
let's assume the subnet max of 30 is this. We
Okay.
have to go to on this router, we have to go to this door.
Yeah.
So that's 10.0.0.2.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we have to go to. So
Okay.
this information
Yeah.
is what we have to place in this router
Yeah.
because that's how you redirect the router to take us to that particular network. Is that
Mm-hmm.
okay?
Yeah.
Now the same thing applies to this network, 20 network.
Mm-hmm.
So 20, let's assume the subnet mask is 255. If we want to go to 20 network
Mm-hmm.
from this router, it means the next door we have to travel to is this door.
Yeah.
Does it make sense?
Yeah.
So that would be 10.0.0.1. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this information that we just did, we're supposed to be
Yeah.
putting it into this router.
Mm-hmm.
Is that okay?
All right.
Now this is the network address, this is the subnet mask, and this is what we call the next hop.
Next. Hop.
Hop. Yeah,
Okay.
so network address,
Mm-hmm.
subnet mask, and the next hop. It's like the next stop from
Mm-hmm.
your bus stop or your router. The
Okay.
next place we have to travel to is the door here. So
Mm-hmm.
if we want to travel to 30, it means the next place we have to travel to is this place. Is that okay?
Yeah.
And if you're on this one and want to travel to 20, the next place we have to travel to is this place. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So the next place is what we refer to as the next stop. Now,
Mm-hmm.
this process of identifying the network and
Mm-hmm.
deciding the direction which we use the next stop to do is
Mm-hmm.
what we refer to as routing.
Okay.
But what we just did here was manual because I had to look for the missing one because I had to kind of
Yeah.
identify all the networks we have in the topology and then go
Yeah.
into each router, list the networks that are missing or
Mm-hmm.
list the networks that are available and then from there match it with the topology and identify the missing ones. Is that okay?
Okay.
Now, the issue here is the fact that we have to be doing it manually
Mm-hmm.
because we have to be doing everything manual. Is that okay?
Yeah.
And that could be a challenge. Assuming we have 50 networks in our topology, but then we have only two of them here, it means we have to identify where the paths are and also place all the 48 into this router.
Yeah.
And that could be a challenge. So, though this is good and this is possible, this
Mm-hmm.
is not the only way of doing routing. So, we'll say that we have types of routing, yeah?
Okay.
So, we have two main types of routing, but here we'll slightly talk about three. It's still two. So, let's
Mm-hmm.
stick with the two for now. But
Okay.
the first one is what we refer to as static routing.
Static. Okay.
So static routing or routing is just what we just did. It's manual. So you as the network administrator or the network engineer would have to
Mm-hmm.
identify, you do the process yourself. So you identify the
Mm-hmm.
network and then you find a path.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would be the job of the network engineer.
Okay.
Does it make sense?
Yeah.
So basically you start listing the network. So you'll be doing it the way I just did it. And then
Mm.
once that's done, you come up with maybe the direction with respect to the networks and the position in your diagram or topology. The next one
Okay.
is what we refer to as a dynamic routing. So dynamic routing is the one which is done by the routers themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So the routers will communicate. So when they communicate, they will be sharing the lists they have. So for example, let's assume the router we create a list on the router. So R1
Mm-hmm.
has only two networks, so 10.0.0,
Okay.
20.0.0,
Mm-hmm.
and R2 has also 10 and 30, if you remember.
Yeah.
So what will happen is R2, which is this guy, will send his list to R1.
Yeah.
So now there'll be a copy of R2 here, which is 10 and then 30. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Also, R1 will also send a copy of its list to R1,
Uh,
R2.
out.
We'll say 10
Mm-hmm.
and
And
20.
20.
Now, the next step you see the routers were the one exchanging it. The next step for
Yeah.
the routers to do will be find the missing one. So R1 already knows he has this, so he doesn't need it. But
Yeah.
he doesn't have 30, so you have to put 30 there. That's the job of the router to do. It wouldn't be you.
Okay.
Then here, R2 will also compare its list. You say, I already have this, so I don't need it, but I don't have 20, so I'll put it there.
Mm-hmm.
And this is done by the routers. You could see that now they all have the same number of
Mm-hmm.
networks.
Okay.
Does it make sense?
Yeah.
And this is what we refer to as dynamic routing. So static routing is done by the engineer. Dynamic routing is mostly done by the routers. They exchange information. There's
Okay.
some form of an exchange.
Mm-hmm.
Once it's enabled, once the protocol, the dynamic protocol is enabled,
Mm-hmm.
then you tell the router that, okay, I want you to be speaking this language, and I want this guy also to be speaking that language, and they'll be
Okay.
able to talk to each other and they exchange information. Is that
Mm.
okay?
Yeah.
That is dynamic routing. So as I said, we have two main types of routing. We
Okay.
have dynamic routing and
Mm.
static routing. Static routing is done by the engineer. Dynamic routing is done by the routers. Any question up to this point?
No. No. Sure.
Okay, so the next thing is for us to go a bit further into what static routing is. Now, when we talk about static routing, we're talking about a case where the network engineer will have to go into the device
Mm-hmm.
and then do the configuration himself by first of all identifying the networks and looking for the path and then telling the router about how to get there. Which
Mm-hmm.
means that in dynamic routing it is manual, right?
Mm-hmm.
It also means that it cannot be
Yeah.
used for
Uh,
large environments. It doesn't scale well because if you have a lot of networks, it will have a problem. Is that okay?
yeah.
So it's ideal for no, ideal for small networks. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Now, when there's a change in the network, you have to go in and then do the changes yourself. You cannot say that the paths once the path has changed, the router will be able to adjust to the change. No, you have to go inside and then look for the new path and then put the path there. Does it make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it does not adapt to changes
Mm-hmm.
in networks. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So basically, these are some of the things that static routing will be used for. Again,
Mm-hmm.
I said we have two main types. Don't worry about the middle one.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it is static routing is configured by the administrator, so it's manual. Also, you
Yeah.
need to know all the missing networks and put them there. It is fast in the sense that the system will not have to be communicating before they find it because you have your topology, you might have done your
Mm-hmm.
calculation and known all the networks. So it's
Mm-hmm.
possible for you to just go in and start configuring, but
Okay.
it is not really for big networks. It's for networks that has just a few routers.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. Now the
Yeah.
disadvantage is that it's used for small network sizes, as you mentioned. So
Yeah.
assuming you have a big network, you wouldn't go with static
Yeah.
routing,
Move.
and
Okay.
everything is also manual. So it means that there's so much work to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Again, as
Okay.
I mentioned, when there's a change, it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't. it doesn't do it automatically. You would have to go in and make changes to the path. Is that clear?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So this is what static routing is.
Okay.
All right. Now what we're doing now is doing the lab for static. First of all, I would wait for the devices to load, and then
Mm-hmm.
I'll start doing simple things like trying to reach this guy, trying to reach this guy, and then trying to reach this guy and see whether it's possible. So let me
Okay.
start with this PC. Let me do IP config just to see whether I have IP addresses. Yeah, that's fine. I have IP addresses. Let me ping my default gateway. So ping 172.16.0.94. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So I'm able to ping it. The next thing for me to do will be to see whether I can ping this guy. So ping
Yeah.
172.16.0.1, destination unreachable. One thing you
Reach.
should also identify or also know is that anytime you see destination unreachable, it should give you an indication that it's possible that the router doesn't know your destination because it doesn't have the network address inside it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Now, the next thing we'll be doing is I'll be doing the same process of static routing. So meaning I would go onto the devices
Mm-hmm.
and then put in the networks that are missing from this router. Is that okay?
Yeah.
But the first thing you have to do is to identify those networks. And once those networks have been identified, then we can go in and then do that. First of all, how many networks are on this router?
We have 1, 2, 3, 4.
What's that?
On you asking for particular router or all of how many networks altogether?
I said how many networks are on this router?
On that router we have 3.
This router.
I'm sorry, 2 networks.
Okay.
Yeah. For marketing and for the router.
What's wrong with this? Okay, so we have 2 networks on that router. 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Looks like there's a problem with my. Okay, so this is what I'll do then. I'll be using because it looks like it's not writing, so I'll be using this one. All right.
Yeah. Sure.
So the networks on this router, we have 172. So we'll start with
16,
this network 172.16.0.64,
Yeah.
and then this one 172.16.0.128. Is that okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's on R1.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, on R1. So let's see on R2.
Yeah.
On
Yeah.
R2,
I
how
have
many networks are on R2?
three networks.
What?
3.
Three. Which one and which one?
Research management.
Yeah, give me the numbers.
Numbers. Okay. 172.
Mm-hmm.
116.0.0,
Yeah.
172.16.0.96,
Mm-hmm.
and 172.16.0.128.
128.
Yeah,
That's R2.
yeah,
The next thing
okay.
is the topology,
Mm-hmm.
which means the diagram that we have here. How many networks are on the diagram?
On the diagram, we have 4.
So we have 4 networks, yeah.
Yeah,
So which are
which is
mm-hmm.
172.16.0.64,
Mm-hmm. Okay. The next one.
and the next one 172.16.0.0,
Yeah.
and 172.16.0.96 and 172.16.0.128.
Okay, so these are the four networks.
Yeah.
Now, if we compare this
Mm-hmm.
to this, which ones are missing?
On there, we're missing 172.16.0.0
Yeah,
and 172.16.0.96.
96. So these
Yeah.
are the missing ones that we have to place
Yeah.
in the router.
Mm-hmm.
Is that okay? So let's start doing that. So I'll go in the router. You could be
Mm-hmm.
doing that as well if you want to. I go to
Yeah.
config and I go to static under routing. So under routing, there's static. I go there and I put the
Mm-hmm.
network address. Which one was the network address again?
The first router, yeah?
Yeah, 172. The
172
missing
point,
one. We put in the missing one.
the missing 172.16.0.0.
What's that network subnet mask of that network?
Subnet mask of that one, 255.255.255.192.
192.
Yeah.
So we are on this router. So how do we
Mhm.
get there? What's the next hop from this router to that network? How do we get there?
We need to go to the next hop is
Mm-hmm.
172.16.0.130.
Mm-hmm. 130. And then you click on add. Is that okay?
And add
You
okay.
have to put the actual network address, the actual subnet mask, and then the next
Mhm.
hop. That's done. We have another network to work with, the other one, right?
The other
So
route,
let me
yeah.
delete these ones by removing them.
Mhm.
And what's the network address?
The next one we're missing is 172.16.0.96.
96. What's the subnet mask for 96?
For the 96, the subnet mark 255.255.255.224.
224. And what will be the next stop if we coming from the same router?
172.16.0.130.
Point 12130.
Yeah,
Okay, then we add it. So we, if you can see here, we have two networks here.
yeah.
We have 172.16.0.0 and 172.16.0.96,
Mm-hmm.
and they're all
Mm-hmm.
going via
Right.
172.16.0.130. This table that you see
Mm-hmm.
down here is what we call the routing table. It is that
Okay.
information that we are putting into this router because it was missing. Is that okay?
Okay.
Now let's try and do the same process here.
Mm-hmm.
On this router, which network is missing?
And the router 2, we're missing the 172.16.0.0.
Are you sure?
Oh, I'm sorry, 64. The
You have to be
market,
careful.
yeah,
What's the subnet mask of that?
the market is 255.255.255.224.
Okay, so 255 255.255.224.
Yeah,
Just so it becomes a bit easier. That's why I'm doing it this way now. Okay,
sure.
so you go on this router and then you
Yep.
have to go to config, go to static, and then put the network there
Okay.
172.16.0.64, right?
Yeah.
And the subnet mask is 255.255.255.224. What's the
Yeah.
next stop? Because we coming from this router, you have to always know which router you are working on and which
And
place are you
going to
going.
the next router is going to be
Mm-hmm.
172.16.0.129.
Okay, and then we add it,
Yeah.
and that's done. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we are assuming that now we've been able to add all the networks. The first thing we have to do is to check
Okay.
whether we can
So,
ping to
oh,
we can send a ping to that same
mm,
place we couldn't reach earlier on. We
mm,
couldn't reach dot one, right? 172.16.0.1.
yeah. Yeah.
Let's see whether this time around we can reach it.
So, okay.
So now we can reach it.
Mm-hmm.
This shows that now everything is working. Don't forget that we
Sure.
had to do routing for it to work
Yeah.
because they
Yeah.
were not on the same network.
Yeah.
If we try to do this guy also, it should
Mm-hmm.
work now. So ping 172.16.0.97.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's correct.
It will work. It's working now.
Yeah.
So this is what routing is all about, and this is what static routing is all about. Static
Okay.
routing is saying that the network engineer will have to identify all the missing networks and then place them
Mhm.
in the routers that they are missing.
Okay.
Does it
Nice.
make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. So is